You guys come up with some funny business, man. You lot created the thumbnail, not me. I've got nothing to do with this thumbnail. I'm just picking out the ones that are the funniest, chuck them up there, and let's hope for the best. By the way, get into the meme channel in the Discord because that's where all these thumbnails are at, so get yourself involved. Now, today, NASDAQ. Still not claimed the all-time high yet. You got consumer sentiment coming out very, very shortly. Well, in the next hour, or should I say. And what's their expectations? Inflation's going up. They're even talking about inflation climbing again in 2026. But you know what? The market doesn't care. Why? Because you haven't got the rate cut yet. And when we get the rate cut in the next 6 days, then happy days, we'll know exactly where we stand. The market has priced in the idea that the Fed is going to cut the rates, but the bets are coming in at around 92%, should be around 100%. But a few people are betting for the idea that maybe the Federal Reserve might not cut. I don't think it won't cut. I don't know. It's one of those ones. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break down the logic on what's going on. It's the final day before the weekend. And of course, the legacy markets close later on tonight. But cryptocurrency will have free roam to do whatever it wants. We've seen some flavor in Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana. I'm telling you, man, Solana is just unstoppable, but that would only make sense because of that Solana treasury that has been introduced. So you can appreciate why Solana is making a move to the upside. Now, is Friday going to be a good day or is it going to be a wipe across the board? Well, we got to wait and see because you've got everything trading at such high premiums. Who on earth is buying at these prices? I mean, we know retail buys when prices are at the highest point because that's what you do. You buy when something is expensive. You walk into a car showroom and say, I want to buy a car that continuously increases in cost. Please let me buy it. Doesn't make sense. You're always going to barter on price. So why is it not the same in the market? Anyways, let's break it all down, ladies and gentlemen, and make sense of the madness. Here we go. So it's all clear to get the rate. Who is she? Anyway, you see that woman on the billboard? Anyways. It's all clear for the rate cut, ladies and gentlemen. All right, it goes in to say that tame inflation reading combined with more signs of jobs cooling spurred a rally on Wall Street. You've got to understand, the market needs bad news to solidify the idea of a rate cut, but that's the short term. Problem is, the market's going to react to it in the long term. Because as much as assets are appreciating right now on the back of the fact that we're going to get cheaper money in the future, what about the companies that are going to start saying, look, man, our balance sheets ain't looking too good. We need to start laying people off just to keep our shareholders happy. So you're going to start seeing some corrections. This market's not sustainable. I mean, when retail thinks it's too expensive, but then they start to think they're missing out, that's when the market's going to turn. But you've got the pivot coming in a few days' time. Check this out. Here we go. So 5 days' time. FOMC. So if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe, like, and all that madness because we'll be doing the live stream for the FOMC to hear what our dearly beloved pal has to say about things. NASDAQ, it's not stopping, man. Anyways, expectations are 92.5%. So we know we're getting a rate cut. We got some dudes down here expecting 7.5% big cut increase, rate cut coming in in the next 5 days. But I mean, if they do anything more than 50 basis point cut, ladies and gentlemen, that signals we've got a big problem. Now today, in the data, we've got the consumer sentiment coming out and the inflation expectations. If inflation expectations come out higher than what they're actually anticipated at, that's going to be a bit of a problem for the marketplace. So we look at the market and we say, okay, NASDAQ, it's off. It's just not going to stop. It doesn't look like it's going to stop. And even if you just take the logic of smart money, dumb money principle, you could safely agree that we are at a point where retail just doesn't care. But when you look at this chart, it kind of paints a different picture. Look down here, you can see that retail took a little bit of a drop in terms of sentiment, but then you've got smart money, which is pretty much flat. When this gets updated later on tonight, it's going to give us where we are with smart money and dumb money. In other words, when smart money is selling, assets appreciate because you sell an investment at a high price. That's what you do. All right. You don't buy it at a high price. You sell it at a high price. But obviously the market is buying at these high levels. Okay. Now, to take things into consideration, let's just go and understand exactly what we're working with in terms of where money's going. Right now, 5-year, 10-year, 2-year yield is going in. Sorry, the 2-year yield is coming up at 3.5%. We always have to look at the yields because it's going to tell us where the sentiment is at. If investors aren't going into the bonds market, they must be going into the stock market. But if they're not going into the bonds or the stock market, where they're going? They're going into cash. That is where the dollar dominance comes into play. Dollar is currently trading at 0.25% up for the day, but it seems to be stalling. And we've got this red vector candle recovery point. That could be a bit of an issue. Gold is doing all good. Gold is going to keep doing all good, and it's going to more than likely continue higher. Now that Trump wants to put some serious sanctions onto Russia, that's going to start getting the ball game rolling. But we did have some news that Apple has delayed its release date for some phones. Let's just quickly go and have a look at that. Where's Apple right now? Where's Apple? Here we go. So Apple, it might be gapping down at the open. Here we go. So we've got a little bit of a gap down, but we've got a gap up here as well. But they're going to be delaying the deliveries or sales of some Apple iPhones in China, of course, because of what's going on with tariff wars and what have you. But I don't know if the market's going to care about that. Again, ultimately, we need to just say to ourselves, is the money going into risk on or is it going into risk off? Well, the 10-year bond market is going down. It's trading negative at 0.25%, but the yields are climbing up, and that's a bit of a problem for me. You then look at price on the NASDAQ and you say to yourself, okay, you're at all-time highs and the yields are going up. When the yields go up, that's a bit of a problem for the marketplace. Now, going over to the volatility index, break it down. Here we go. Volatility index still trading at 17.61. What does that tell you? Investors are complacent. When it's below 20, usually you just got to get yourself ready for shorts. Why? Because when this spikes up, that implies that investors are looking to hedge, and they'll take their money off risk and then go into assets that they can cover themselves with, right? So when this starts to go up, that's when you start paying attention when to buy something. When this is going down, you got to get ready to start short in the market, in my opinion. Now, going into it all, cryptocurrency, let's have a look at good old Bitcoin. It likes rate cuts. It really does. Asian session last night saw a wonderful move to the upside for Bitcoin, but the star of the show is the Solana. Look at that. Absolute nut job. Going to the upside. Here we go. It's not too far away from its all-time high, but I mean, come on. This was around about the time when Trump came into power, just about to come into power before his inauguration. And then, of course, everyone started doing those meme coins where it was Eric Trump and all of the rest of the gang. That's really what gave Solana its pump to the all-time high, in my opinion. But looking at the way Solana's behaving right now, it's because of the treasury that's coming into play. So that's good news right there. We go over to some news. Here we go. So this is where it gets interesting. Altcoin season apparently is coming into play. So let me just be frank with you all, okay? Yes, the injection of liquidity when the Fed cuts the rates is going to come into action. Cool. How many of you agree that historically, when the Fed pivots, the market's usually correct? Why will people go into altcoins? Wall Street ain't in altcoins. They're in Bitcoin, fractionally going over to Ethereum. Tell me why altcoin season is going to pump. Now, it's not me talking down on your bags as such, but let's just think about it. We're going into the expectation that inflation is going to keep on climbing up, all right? So even though liquidity is going to be released into the marketplace, inflation is still going to be high. That means you need to have more dollars to get yourself your assets. We haven't got any purchasing power on the dollar, ladies and gentlemen. That is an issue. So when you're looking for altcoins, again, in my opinion, when things are promising and we do get a good cash injection and we are at levels of interest rates that people can work with, then okay, altcoin season could be coming into action. I mean, look, Solana's making some big moves. You've got BNB doing absolutely wonderful moves as well. You would assume that altcoin season is happening as we speak. Okay, I mean, HBAR is not looking too great, but it's looking like it's got a nice little bounce from this 800 EMA. And then you got this nut job right here, XRP, who's talking there. Hold on. Nvidia's back from cloud, steps back from... Oh, wow. That's not good. Nvidia steps back from cloud computing business. Nvidia stepping back from its cloud computing business, which had put into quasi-competition with Amazon Web Services. Yeah, I can understand why they're taking a step back from there. Because Amazon's their largest customer. I'd do that. I'd say to my largest customer, be my guest. Take over. You do what you want to do. You're my largest customer. What was the statistics? I think it's one customer makes up a third of the revenue for Nvidia. One customer. That's Amazon, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, let's go back into Bitcoin. Let's break down some metrics and understand where we are. So this is a 7-hour time frame. You can see Bitcoin's coming back towards the Jackson Hole Symposium region. Going over into the order flow, Solana's just been selling. Look, selling. Someone sold $9 million worth of Solana at $230 a share, a coin, sorry. So Bitcoin, Let's have a look at where you are in terms of order flow. So we've got some interesting behavior happening on Bitcoin right now. The market isn't open just yet, but you can see in the Asian session, they sold. Do you think this dude that picked up 63 million nearly of Bitcoin has sold any? Let's go and have a look if there is any big order flow coming into it. No. We don't have any. Oh, here we go. $40 million. 20 million was sold there. 35 million was sold at 115,488. 40 million sold at 40 million. Sorry, 40 million sold at 115,600. Like, and yeah, it's going. Ladies and gentlemen, they're dumping this Bitcoin. They're dumping it as it's rising because that's what you do. You sell something of value as it rises. You don't sell it when it drops. Who does that? Who does that? Certainly none of you guys. Anyway, going into it all, you got some Bitcoin bids coming into play, 6.3 million at 114,800. Now let's just quickly go over to the story of open interest. Where are we at with open interest? Here we go. So that open interest zone that we've been talking about over this week or so has shown proof. The next point is all the way up here at 120,896. The logic says that that would be the next point that price transacts at. Because if you look at how price behaves at specific areas of open interest. There's not that much open interest outside this point, which is why you can appreciate that this ended up becoming an area of resistance. Look at this area down here. Ended up being a big area of interest for price to go up from. Same zone. They tested that zone perfectly, and then it shifted to the upside. Happy days. Now, we've got good news in crypto. We can't hide it. Look, BlackRock dumps over $900 million worth of Bitcoin or crypto this week. How good is that? It's not BlackRock. It's investors, not BlackRock. Why say that? BlackRock does not dump it. Investors get rid of it, not BlackRock. Why are they making people see that? BlackRock's crypto portfolio has shifted significantly over the past week, with blockchain data showing that sharp reduction in its Ethereum holdings alongside renewed accumulation of Bitcoin. Doesn't matter what they're doing with the crypto, it's what the investors are doing. Okay, quickly going over into the Bitcoin ETF to understand where we are with that flow. Let's break it down. Here we go. So we were at a high of around 7. Here we go. 757,364 Bitcoins. That is where your monopoly is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the money heist. You've heard me say it before. That's the money heist. That's where your crypto is going. All right. Institutional investors are plowing into it. It's look at where your Bitcoin supply is going, man. That is absolutely wild. Look at how much they're taking, and it's institutional investors. They don't even hold the Bitcoin. It's just been, anyways, that's another story. So quickly going back into open positions right now, just to put things into perspective on where we are. We've had some short liquidations coming into action, but there's not that many people short in Bitcoin right now. We've got a lot of people long in Bitcoin. Okay, so that is a bit of an issue, which is why price is going down a little bit. A lot of people are going long up here. Why? That doesn't make sense. But the only next areas of interest in terms of where traders' commitment is down here at 112,850. Now, when we go to Bitcoin's price action, just to put it into perspective, you've got this green vector candle block right here. Now, this is a little bit of a longer time frame play right here. But logic says that if you've got Bitcoin dropping, retrace, the story is retrace continuation back up to the upside. Like I said, they're coming back for this vector candle, and you've got 5 days until the FOMC. And I believe going into next week, crypto's just going to keep on pumping alongside the NASDAQ. Where is it? NASDAQ's going to keep on going up until FOMC. Then we know at the FOMC where we're going to be with the rate cuts, and then the market will then start to correct. That's what I think is going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. But as I said earlier on about inflation, says here that crypto faces liquidity endgame. Debt and inflation risks mount by 2026. That's the case because, of course, inflation itself is still high. And we're going into the start of a new year. Finance is going to get refinanced, okay, at different levels of rates. And that's the problem that Trump has got, because you've got $9.5 trillion worth of capital that's going to get refinanced. Now, the tricky thing is this. The rates right now, 3.6% on the 5-year, 10-year, 4.05%. All right. So even though interest rates are at 4.5%, which is what the rate is at right now, the expectation is they're going to come to this rate right here at 4.25%. That's what we're expecting. So we're going to get a 25 basis point cut, and then we're going to get more cuts heading into the end of the year. So we've got 2 more FOMC meetings, ladies and gentlemen. We've got October's meeting, So we click on October, and they're expecting 3.754% as the interest rate cuts. But from now until then, we're going to get more inflation reading. We're going to get more in data on the manufacturing sector. And if the manufacturing sector does come out and show that things are okay, then they've got no reason to change the rates. But bets are coming in that they think it's going to come down to 3.75 in October. Then we go to December, the final one, where we're expecting 3.5 to 3.75. Hypothetically, if we get down to 3.5, 3.75, I think that whatever rate that they actually drop to, it's going to be held for a long time. That's what I think is going to happen. Because as you go to January, they're all still expecting 3.5. And then we go to March 2026, they're going to 3.25, but you still got a little bit of weight at 3.5. And then they expect by April, they're going into the 3.25. If you look at the expectations, right, they are actually betting, look, 3.25, 3%. Going into a year's time, 3.25, October 26, 3.25, and it's starting to get dispersed, okay? That's on the assumption that the economy does start to pick up as interest rates go down. But how long are these tariffs going to go on for? That's the key thing, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Now, quickly going over into see what Bitcoin is doing on the daily time frame for my holders a second, and then we can call it quits for the day and let you guys continue. So, what we got? Holders, you're above the 50 EMA. That's important. Now, what I suggest you guys do, as we head into the FOMC, the 5 and 13 EMA right here, they're starting to cross over the 50 EMA. The more time Bitcoin spends staying above this 50 EMA cloud right here, that's good news for us, all right? So you could be looking at some spot opportunities in and around this range right here. And then in my opinion, I think it's good to try and hold it up until the FOMC will get a big pump towards that. And then you start taking some profits, because if you're going to hold on to Bitcoin as it tries to make its way towards the next all-time high, you're going to run the risk of getting shaken out again. And then price will come all the way back down. We've got a change in monetary policy, and then the markets are going to rotate. Okay, remember, we're only getting 25 basis points. It's not that much liquidity. Now, courtesy, we're going to get around $4 trillion back into the marketplace, but is it enough? In my opinion, I don't think it is enough, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so just take that into consideration. Quickly going over to gold for the gold traders as well. Yes, gold is climbing up, and I believe once we get the rate cut, gold goes down, okay, because they priced in that rate cut. Of course, if we hear any madness that happens over the weekend in regards to Israel and anyone participating in any attacks, gold's price will gap up as we go into the open on Sunday night. So just take that into consideration. One thing you do need to be mindful of, ladies and gentlemen, is the Japanese yen. The Japanese yen is gapping up at the open today. That is bad news, because next week we've got the Japanese press conference, which does tell us that they think they're going to be increasing their interest rates, and that equally is going to attack the dollar and send assets to the downside. So now you can appreciate we've got two events. We've got the rate cut, and we've also got Bank of Japan wanting to increase their interest rates. All right. The thing is, they can't afford to have the dollar going up, because trade's going to be a problem for them, all right? So they need the dollar to stay down as much as they can. If they do see the dollar going up, that's when they intervene and start purchasing dollars. But there's no point in them purchasing dollars right now, because the dollar itself is battered. So that means they would have to convert more yen into dollars just so they can offset the value of dollar against the yen. Quite tricky stuff, but when you understand that that logic of why Japan really needs the dollar to get literally violated, then it serves them in terms of trade. Okay, cool. With that being said, quickly going over into the stock market to understand where we are. Let's have a look at where is our good old circle. Where are you? Come on. Where's circle? Here we go. Let's have a look. Very good. Very good. Doing well. Where are we at with our fund ownership? 123, still the same. I'm going to be buying after FOMC anyway, so it could be basing out outside of this point. Just quickly going over to the NASDAQ to look at where we are in pre-volume in the marketplace daily. Here we go. So, okay, it's done all right to say the least. It is at all-time highs and volume is above average. That's a good sign. But, of course, given with Friday, just be very, very cautious when we're going into the open, ladies and gentlemen. It is a gap up on the open on the NASDAQ futures and CME, so just take your time with everything, okay? Now, with that being said, hit the like button, subscribe. The market will be opening in the next 4 minutes. I have to make a move. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. make sure you pay yourselves. The data comes out at 3 p.m. UK time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard. Just make sure that if you've got any profits, lock them in and go and enjoy your weekends and update the meme channel in the Discord, ladies and gentlemen. We need more thumbnails, all right? Mad love and respect, and I'll see you soon. Peace.